Hey everyone, welcome back. Tonight we're drifting quietly into a world that moves slower than ours ever does. A world without alarms, without schedules, without anything blinking for attention. A medieval village did not wake up all at once. It stretched awake. Smoke rose lazily from chimneys, not because anyone planned it, but because fire simply needed air. Roosters crowed whenever they felt like it, which was rarely on time. Dogs barked at shadows they'd barked at 1,000 times before. Morning arrived unevenly. In one cottage, a man sat on the edge of his bed, rubbing sleep from his eyes, already tired of a day that hadn't started yet. In another, a woman stirred a pot that smelled faintly of yesterday and strongly of regret. Somewhere a child was pretending not to be awake while very much being awake. There were no clocks to argue with, only hunger. And when hunger was quiet enough, boredom spoke. By mid-morning, the village square began to fill, not with purpose, but with curiosity. People drifted in the way leaves drift, carried by nothing in particular. Someone leaned against a post that had been leaning longer than anyone could remember. Someone else sat on a barrel that wasn't theirs and pretended it was. At the center stood a pig. The pig had no idea it mattered. Pig racing was not announced with banners or schedules. It simply happened when someone decided it would. The rope was untied. The pig hesitated, then ran. The crowd reacted before the pig finished thinking. Men ran too fast. Women shouted too loud. Children ran directly into danger with enthusiasm. Mud splashed. Shoes were lost. Someone fell and stayed down longer than necessary, not hurt, just enjoying the attention. The pig escaped. It always did. And still the crowd applauded. Because success was optional. Participation was enough. In another village, far from this one but not very different, people gathered on a hill that should never have been trusted. The hill sloped sharply, as if daring gravity to misbehave. At the top sat a wheel of cheese. Cheese rolling had no referee, no safety measures, no logic. Someone nudged it. The cheese rolled. People followed because they always had. The first person fell almost immediately. The second tripped over the first. The third went airborne briefly, then disappeared behind laughter. At the bottom, someone held the cheese triumphantly while others lay scattered like dropped laundry. Broken bones healed. The tradition did not stop because pain ended. Boredom lingered. Entertainment wasn't optional in medieval life. It was survival. When days repeated endlessly, anything different became valuable. Even chaos. Inside stone building that smelled of damp parchment and old breath, another form of entertainment unfolded. Courtrooms. Not the kind filled with shouting lawyers, the kind filled with silence. In medieval Europe, animals were placed on trial. Pigs accused of killing children, rats charged with theft, insects summoned for destroying crops. The trials were real. Records exist. The animals were given lawyers, sometimes better ones than the peasants ever had. People attended not because they believed the animal understood, but because the ritual mattered. Justice performed publicly reassured everyone watching that the world still had rules, even when those rules bent toward absurdity. Festivals arrived like accidents. No one planned them properly. Someone rang a bell, someone else repeated it. By the time anyone questioned it, the festival already existed. The Feast of Fools turned the world upside down briefly. Authority wore jokes. Jokes wore authority. Priests laughed. Choir boys preached nonsense. For one day, no one pretended order was permanent. and then the day ended. Everyone returned to their place, slightly lighter than before. Night came early. Candles flickered. Fire popped softly. Stories replaced games. Someone exaggerated. Someone corrected them incorrectly. Children fell asleep mid-sentence. Outside, the village settled into its familiar chorus of snoring, muttering, scratching, and the occasional unmistakable sound of someone very much alive. Sleep was not quiet, but it was rest. Tomorrow would arrive whether anyone wanted it or not. But tonight, boredom had been pushed back. Just enough. The village did not fall asleep all at once. It softened. The fires lowered themselves without asking permission. The light retreated slowly from the walls, leaving only the corners awake. Someone coughed once. Someone else shifted in bed and decided not to move again. In medieval villages, night was not a clean moment. There was no switch, no signal. Darkness arrived like a guest who did not knock, and with it came the quieter kinds of entertainment. Not games that required running, but games that required waiting. Near the edge of the square, a small group lingered longer than the rest, not because they had business, but because they had nowhere else to be. A man leaned against a post that had supported generations of boredom. A woman sat on a low stone, hands folded, listening to nothing in particular. Someone began to speak, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to be heard. Stories were not performances. They were shared weight. Someone talked about a pig they once owned. Someone else corrected them. Someone else corrected that correction. The truth didn't matter. The rhythm did. Voices rose and fell slowly, like breathing. Children nearby pretended to sleep while collecting every word. Games continued even after the sun disappeared. Not formal ones, improvised ones. Someone tossed a stone and dared another to hit it in the dark. Someone counted steps to the well without falling. Someone lost and laughed quietly, so as not to wake anyone important. Laughter at night was softer. It knew it didn't belong. In winter months, when cold pressed itself into everything, people gathered closer. Benches creaked under shared weight. Blankets were traded without comment. Entertainment became stillness. Someone hummed. Someone tapped a rhythm on wood. Someone stared into fire like it might speak back. Sometimes it did. Children invented games with nothing. A stick became a sword. A shadow became an enemy. A whisper became a challenge. They learned quickly that imagination was cheaper than tools. Adults watched without stopping them, because adults remembered. Some entertainment was ritual. Before sleep, people repeated small habits they did not question. A woman touched the door frame 3 times. A man muttered a phrase he didn't fully understand. Someone placed shoes carefully, as if order might carry into dreams. These were not beliefs so much as comforts, and comfort mattered. In some homes, people shared a final task: sorting grain slowly, repairing something that didn't need repairing yet, doing something small to delay tomorrow. Time moved differently when no one was watching it. Sleep itself was not gentle. Beds were wooden. Mattresses were straw. Fleas were confident. People scratched. People sighed. People dreamed without permission. Dreams were strange. A farmer dreamed of flying. A child dreamed of chasing the pig again, but winning this time. A woman dreamed of silence and found it unsettling. Outside, animals settled into their own routines. Cows exhaled deeply. Goats muttered in their sleep. A dog lifted its head once, then decided nothing was wrong enough to care about. The village breathed together. In monasteries and larger towns, sleep looked similar but sounded different. Stone walls echoed snores. Candles guttered stubbornly. Monks rose and fell in prayer cycles that blurred together. Sometimes someone slept through them. Sometimes no one noticed. Even discipline grew tired at night. And in the quietest hours, boredom returned softly, not as restlessness, but as thought. People lay awake briefly, wondering nothing specific. Then sleep took them again. Morning would return. It always did. But for now, the village rested in a shared pause. No victories, no losses, just the slow passing of hours that did not ask to be remembered. And now, there is nothing else that needs your attention. Nothing waiting, nothing asking to be understood. The village has gone quiet in the way only old places know how to be quiet. Not empty, just resting. The fires have softened into dull orange embers, glowing without purpose. Smoke drifts upward slowly, as if it has nowhere important to go. Walls hold the warmth they have borrowed for the night. Floors remember the footsteps of the day, but no longer expect more. Somewhere nearby, a beam settles with a faint sound. Not a warning, just wood being wood. Breathing slows, not because it has to, but because it can. In one cottage, someone turns once in their sleep, then decides against waking. In another, a hand rests on a chest, counting breaths without meaning to. A blanket shifts, a sigh escapes and disappears. Outside, the air feels heavier, calmer, the kind of air that belongs only to night, the kind that presses gently, reminding everything to stay still. Animals rest without worrying if they are doing it correctly. A cow exhales, long and steady. A dog dreams briefly, then lets the dream go. Insects pause their work, then resume quietly, as if even they understand the hour. The sky remains patient. Stars watch without comment. They have seen nights like this before. They will see them again. Nothing important is happening now. And that is exactly how it should be. Thoughts drift more slowly, losing their edges. The sharp ones soften first. The quiet ones stretch out and fade. There is no need to remember anything. No need to hold on to a single word. The past is already settled. Tomorrow can wait where it is. Right now, the only thing that matters is that everything is still breathing, including you. Your breathing blends easily with the quiet of the night, as if it has always belonged here. Nothing about this moment is new. People have rested like this for centuries, without naming it, without questioning it. In another part of the village, just beyond the last leaning fence, a single candle still burns. Its light is low, uneven, and patient. Inside the small cottage sits a man named Oren. Not because the name matters, but because everyone had a name once, even if history forgot it. Oren is not important. That is what makes his story familiar. He sits at a rough wooden table, hands resting where work used to be. The day has already taken what it needed from him. His shoulders ache in the quiet way that no longer asks for sympathy. The candle flickers. He watches it without thinking. Earlier, he repaired a shoe that did not want repairing. The leather fought him. The thread snapped twice. He fixed it anyway. Not for money, just because it needed doing. Now there is nothing left. He exhales slowly, the kind of breath that empties more than lungs. The room smells faintly of wood, old cloth, and the memory of soup. Oren stands, not in a hurry, and moves to the narrow bed pressed against the wall. The mattress is straw. It has been straw longer than he can remember. He sits for a moment, longer than necessary. Outside, the night holds steady. A distant sound carries briefly through the air. Maybe a cart, maybe the wind remembering a road. Oren does not investigate. He lies down carefully, as if the bed might take offense if rushed. The straw shifts. The frame creaks once, then agrees to hold him. His eyes remain open for a while. Thoughts drift in, slow and uninvited. Not worries, just fragments. A field, a fence that needs fixing tomorrow. A face he hasn't seen in years, smiling for no reason at all. None of it asks to stay. The candle burns lower, its flame bends, then steadies again. Oren does not blow it out. He lets it decide. Breathing deepens. Muscles release their grip, one by one, like hands letting go of a rope. Somewhere nearby, another villager turns in their sleep and mutters a word that means nothing. It fades before it finishes forming. The night does not react. In time, Oren's eyes close. Not suddenly, not completely, just enough. Dreams do not arrive with images at first. Only a sense of weightlifting, of standing still without effort. The candle finally surrenders, the wick glowing once before darkness claims it. The room does not change much. Darkness here is familiar. Outside, the village remains held in the same quiet pause. Roofs settle. Animals breathe. The earth rests beneath everything without complaint. And just like Oren, just like the village, just like countless others before this moment, you are allowed to rest too. Nothing needs doing now. Nothing is unfinished enough to follow you here. Sleep moves closer, unannounced and gentle. You do not need to meet it halfway. It will find you. The night does not end with Oren. It never ends with just one person. A short walk from his cottage, past the low stone wall and the apple tree that hasn't given fruit in years. Another light flickers briefly, then disappears. This belongs to Marta. Marta has lived in the village longer than most can remember, including herself. She does not count years anymore. She counts seasons by how her hands feel in the cold. Her cottage is smaller than Oren's, lower, closer to the ground, as if it has slowly sunk out of tiredness. She has already gone to bed. Sleep found her early tonight, the way it does when the body has done everything it can and no more. Her breathing is shallow but steady, practiced by repetition rather than intention. Beside her bed, on a stool with one uneven leg, sits a bowl. Inside it, a piece of bread, untouched, not forgotten, saved. Marta wakes briefly, not fully, just enough to turn her head toward the window. Moonlight slips in through the gap in the shutters, drawing a thin line across the wall. She thinks dimly of her mother. Not as she was at the end, but as she was when Marta was small and the world felt wider. The thought drifts away before it finishes forming. Her hand curls slightly, as if still holding something invisible. Then it relaxes again. Outside her window, the night carries on. A soft sound moves through the grass. A hedgehog, maybe. Something small and alive, doing exactly what it needs to do. The village does not respond. It has learned not to. Farther still, at the edge of the fields, a young man named Thomas lies awake longer than he should, not because of fear, because of thought. Tomorrow he will rise early. Tomorrow he will work until his back reminds him where he is. But for now his mind wanders quietly, without urgency. He listens to the sound of the night and finds comfort in how little it asks of him. Eventually even the thoughts grow tired. His breathing slows. The night continues without announcing itself. It does not move forward. It simply remains. Beyond Marta's cottage, past the line where the packed dirt turns softer and the grass grows uneven. The village well stands quiet. No rope moves, no bucket creaks. Beside it, on the low stone edge, worn smooth by centuries of waiting, sits a man named Ilias. He is not young. He is not old enough to stop being useful. He came out here because sleep did not arrive when expected. Not because his mind raced, but because it wandered. He rests his elbows on his knees and lets his hands hang loose, fingers relaxed, remembering nothing in particular. The well reflects the moon faintly, not clearly, just enough to remind him it is there. Ilias thinks about water for a moment, about how it waits underground, patient and dark until someone needs it. The thought feels important for a second, then it doesn't. A breeze passes through the square, slow and careful, nudging loose straw, touching the edges of cloaks forgotten on benches. It carries the smell of damp earth and something older, something settled. Ilias closes his eyes. He does not pray. He does not count. He simply sits. Somewhere nearby, a shutter taps once against stone, then stills. A sound so familiar no one notices it anymore. In a nearby house, a child stirs and murmurs a name, not calling out, just remembering. The night holds it without echo. Ilias shifts his weight and leans back slightly, resting his shoulders against the cool stone. The stone does not resist. It has held worse. He thinks briefly of tomorrow, of the fence post that leans too much, of the tool that needs sharpening. The thoughts line up neatly, then drift apart again. There is no urgency left in them. Eventually his breathing deepens. His body makes the decision his mind did not. He stands slowly, joints moving with quiet agreement, and turns toward home. His steps are unhurried. The path knows them already. Behind him, the well remains exactly as it was. In another cottage, closer to the fields, a woman named Elin lies awake with her eyes closed. She is not asleep yet. She is not trying to be. Her husband breathes steadily beside her, already far from the day. She listens for a moment, not to monitor, but to match. Their breathing finds the same rhythm without effort. Elin thinks of cloth, of how many times it has been washed, repaired, softened by hands like hers. She thinks of her mother's hands doing the same thing, in the same way. The thought does not bring sadness, only weight. Her fingers curl slightly, pressing into the rough blanket, grounding her. Outside, the field shifts faintly as something small moves through it. A mouse, a bird adjusting its place, nothing threatening. Elin exhales and lets the thought of cloth fade. Sleep does not arrive as a wave. It seeps. At the edge of the village, the last cottage finally darkens. A candle gives up. A room releases its light. The village is now fully held by night. No one notices when this happens. It simply is. And somewhere within it, including you, the body remembers how to rest. Nothing more is asked. The night does not deepen. It widens. It stretches itself gently over the village, filling the spaces between houses, between thoughts, between breaths. Near the edge of the fields, where the fence posts no longer stand straight and the grass grows without instruction, an old man named Corin sits on a low stool outside his door. He has not gone to bed yet. Not because he is restless, because this is the hour he prefers. The door behind him is open just enough to let warmth linger. The fire inside has been reduced to a glow, no longer trying to impress anyone. Corin's hands rest on his thighs, palms down, heavy with familiarity. They have held tools for decades. Tonight they hold nothing. He listens, not for danger, not for voices, just for proof that the world is still where it should be. A distant owl calls once, then decides against repeating itself. Somewhere far off, something shifts in the dark and then stops. The sounds are small. They do not ask to be understood. Corin nods once, to no one. He remembers a night very much like this one, years ago, when he sat in the same place with someone beside him. They did not speak then either. The memory arrives gently and leaves before it becomes heavy. He stands slowly, joints clicking softly like wood settling, and steps back inside. The stool remains outside, patient. Across the village, a pair of sisters share a bed that has always been too small. Their feet touch accidentally. Neither pulls away. One breathes through her mouth, the other through her nose. The sounds overlap, separate and overlap again. They will rise early tomorrow. They will complain quietly. They will forget to complain by midday. For now they sleep. Near the barn, a horse shifts its weight and exhales sharply, then settles again. Straw rustles. In the smallest house near the stream, a widow named Sarah wakes briefly, not fully. She reaches out, touches the empty space beside her, then withdraws her hand without reaction. This is not new. The stream outside murmurs softly, repeating itself endlessly, never bored with its own voice. Sarah listens just long enough to feel anchored, then lets sleep return. The village breathes together. Walls hold. Roofs lean. Earth supports everything without comment. No one dreams of greatness tonight. No one plans. Sleep moves carefully from house to house, not rushing, not skipping anyone. It does not knock. Somewhere very far away, a bell creaks faintly as the wind touches it. It does not ring. The night remains unbroken, and just like the village, just like Corin and Elin and Marta and Orin, your body knows this rhythm. It has followed it before. Nothing is required now. Nothing needs fixing. The dark is not empty. It is full of rest, and it holds. The hours move without counting themselves. No one in the village knows exactly what time it is, and no one needs to. Somewhere between night and deeper night, the air cools just enough to be noticed, then settles again. At the far end of the main path, where the ground dips slightly before rising toward the woods, a man named Joran lies awake on a narrow bench inside his home. Not because he cannot sleep, but because sleep has not finished approaching him yet. His eyes are closed, his thoughts are slow. Above him, the roof beams cross each other like tired arms. He has looked at them every night of his life. Tonight, they look no different. Joran listens to the quiet movements of the house, wood adjusting. A mouse somewhere behind the wall deciding whether now is the right moment. He does not mind the mouse. The mouse has its own reasons. His breathing deepens gradually without instruction. Each breath feels heavier than the last, not with effort, but with release. For a moment he remembers a story his father once told him, not the words, just the feeling of being smaller while listening. The memory fades before it finishes forming. Outside, the stream near the village edge carries on its slow conversation with the stones. Water moves because it always has. It does not rush. It does not stop. A leaf breaks free from a branch and lands softly on the surface, spinning once before continuing downstream. No one sees it. In a nearby house, a young mother named Lena wakes to the sound of her child shifting in sleep. She does not open her eyes. She reaches out instinctively, rests her hand where it needs to be. The child settles again. Lena remains awake just long enough to notice the warmth of the small body beside her, then lets herself sink back into rest. There is no fear in the moment, only habit, only care. The fields beyond the village lie flat and quiet, holding the moonlight like a thin layer of cloth. Fences cast long shadows that do not move. An owl glides silently from one tree to another and disappears. The trees do not react. In the barn, a cow shifts in size, a deep sound that vibrates briefly through the wooden frame. The sound fades quickly, absorbed by straw and darkness. The barn remembers many nights like this one. Back near the center of the village, the well remains untouched. The rope hangs straight. The bucket rests against stone. The well does not sleep. It waits. Jorn's thoughts finally loosen their grip. Sleep arrives not as a moment, but as an agreement. His body accepts it quietly. Across the village, others do the same, each in their own way, without ceremony. The night does not announce their rest, it simply keeps it. And slowly, without effort, without decision, the village moves deeper into stillness. Everything that needed to happen has already happened. Everything else can wait. The night does not make an announcement when it begins to loosen its hold. It simply stays a little longer. Across the village, nothing changes, and that is the point. Roofs remain still, paths lie empty, doors stay closed, not locked, just finished for the day. Inside the houses, bodies have settled into the shapes they know best. Arms drape where they always do. Breathing finds its own pace and keeps it. No one is thinking clearly anymore. Thoughts have softened into impressions. Impressions have thinned into silence. The stream continues to move, not because anyone listens, but because it remembers how. The fields hold the last of the night air without complaint. The trees stand exactly as they were, patient and unconcerned. Nothing new enters the village now. Nothing leaves. Even time seems to slow, as if it has decided there is nowhere urgent to go. If a sound appears, it fades quickly. If a thought surfaces, it drifts away before it can take shape. The night is not empty. It is full of rest. It holds the houses, it holds the fields, it holds the people within them, and it holds you too.